views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of BronxNet or the program underwriters.
Hello, everyone. I'm your host, Eileen Newman, and thank you for tuning in to Mission Bronx, BronxNet's new media program in partnership with Hostos Community College and the Center for Bronx Nonprofits. This show is geared towards making you, our viewers, and anyone interested in or working for a nonprofit think about them in a new light, while also helping you gain access to important services and opportunities along the way. Our mission is to introduce you to the world of nonprofits in the Bronx. Before we begin our mission, we wanted to see how much you already know about nonprofits. So we went out into the community and asked what a not-for-profit is, and if anyone could name any.
I think it's an organization that gives you money and you don't receive any benefits back from it.
A nonprofit organization basically means an organization that doesn't make money for itself, but for all they do is solicit for funds for their cause. For example, Red Cross is a nonprofit organization.
Well, they're not for profit, so they may even make money and they may be able to disperse that money within, but in the end, once they've paid everything and paid for the nonprofit activities, there should be nothing left. So everything after paying payroll should go to whatever their cause is.
Great. I do know what a non-for-profit is. It is a corporation or an agency or any kind of business that does not make money for themselves. They provide a service and they are like it is non-for-profit. They don't collect a profit, but they do make money, but just enough money to pay for their own goods and services.
To my understanding, a non-profit is organizations that do community work mostly, and they have like a tax break from the government or get money from the government and people. Donations.
I guess a non-for-profit is when a company does something and they don't get any money for it.
A lot of churches are not-for-profits. I know our church is a not-for-profit. My husband, actually, we had to look at this, is just starting to work for a lot of hospitals are not-for-profits. And again, emphasis, because that is, I think, often misconstrued, is that not-for-profit means that they're not going to try to earn money, but they do because they still have to pay their payroll, and then the rest goes to whatever the cause is.
There's a lot of them out there. I know Planned Parenthood is a non-for-profit, kind of a weird one, but I know that is, and I know Spence Chapin I believe is a non-for-profit. Also, that's an adoption agency. My parents do stuff with them. There's a lot. There's so many non-for-profits.
Well, that was great to see how many people in the Bronx know what a nonprofit is. One of the things that I've noticed, though, is that everyone mentioned big nonprofits. There are 2,500 counting and growing nonprofits right here in the Bronx. So today, to get a deeper insight into the world of nonprofits, we're joined in the studio by Tanisha Hendricks from Princess for a Lifetime and Cindy Menzer from Lyft New York City. And they both work in very different kinds of nonprofits, different sizes, from Montefiore or Planned Parenthood, or some of the ones that have been mentioned here. So I wanted to begin, Tanisha, with you and to have you talk about what made you, because you're a founder.
Yes.
So what made you start a nonprofit? What was the impetus?
A life-changing experience. My daughter at the age of 4 had cancer, and we went through 3 years of treatment within Montefiore Hospital. And with her having treatment, I dressed her up as whatever she wanted to be every day. And through that experience, we used to see this cart come around the hospital, and we wanted to know how were they doing things and how were they making children happy. And we asked them. It was the Pinwheel Project. And from there, we started inquiring how to start a non-for-profit. And they led us to the Lawyers Alliance, a non-for-profit itself.
So what made you go from thinking, here I'm doing this, I want to do something to make kids happy in hospitals, to saying, I want to get involved in all of this paperwork and really creating an organization. Have you ever done anything like that before?
No, never. But for me to move freely and to make everything confirmation is a process you do have to go through. You just can't really go into so many hospitals as I do today and dress up as many kids. So I had to start the process because not only 1 or 2 to 3 children wanted to be dressed up, it was like an entire hospital of children battling illnesses needed this service.
And tell us a little bit about the dress-up part.
The dress up is like an on-call. Children that are battling their illnesses or had a transplant are in the hospital during an asthma treatment and they're in there more than 2 weeks. They call them Princess for a Lifetime. It's mostly a surprise. So when we're going in there, we're uplifting their spirits. They could be in bed a week. They could be in bed all day. So when we go in there, they're getting out of bed. They're getting dressed. They're Spider-Man. They're a little bunny. So it's just the gift of make-believe for them just to forget about everything they're going through that day.
That's great. And how long did it take you to go through the process of actually filling out the paperwork? And
the process was mostly easy for us because being introduced to the Lawyers Alliance, all we had to do was give them our pitch, tell them what our mission was, what we wanted to do, and they mostly did the processing, the paperwork. We just mainly had to do the fees, so it was beautiful. It was kind of less than a year during the whole process.
Well, I have to give a little plug for Lawyers Alliance. One of the things that we're hoping happens on this show is that people take notes, because Lawyers Alliance is an organization people should know about. They charge, I think, about $350, but then when you go in, they help you with everything, and they are a great resource.
Excellent.
But we also wanted to show you a little clip from James Sheehan, the chief of the Attorney General's Charities Bureau. He is a person who goes out into the community, talks about the rules and regulations for nonprofits. He's very approachable. I would highly recommend also that people look into the Attorney General's office and what they have to offer, because there are also new guidelines for nonprofits. So let's hear a little bit of what James has to say about this process.
Not-for-profit is a New York phrase. Charity is the term that most people are familiar with, and what it means is that you're undertaking to do something for other people. It can be arts, it can be social services, it can be theater or music, but the idea is that you're getting together to do something good for others. There's the paper stuff, right, which is you have to have somebody who's very good at organizing documents, and because you have to go to the IRS to get a not-for-profit determination, right, a tax exemption, and you have to write a check for $400 to do that. And then when you get your tax exemption, you have to make sure you have it, because the next 3 places you have to go need to see that tax exemption. The second thing that you need to do is you're going to go to the New York State Department of State and make sure you're incorporated and you have a proper name. And then you're going to come to us and say, I have a proper name, I have a corporation, I paid my $400, the IRS has said I'm a tax exempt, now will you please register me? And what we do is we've developed a series of guidance documents, booklets that say, first you do this, then you do this, then you do this. And the biggest one is the document called Procedures for Forming and Changing New York Not-for-Profit Corporation, which is very exciting. But it's on our website, and it's a step-by-step of the things that you have to do. And then we have a second book called Right from the Start, which tells you when you start a nonprofit, you have to have 3 directors, and what we expect from them and what you should expect from them, and some of the other process things that you have to do to fit into the not-for-profit sector. It's very important to be a corporation, right? And people say, why? Well, if you're an unincorporated charity, everybody in that charity, everybody's a member, is liable for any bad thing that happens by the charity. So if somebody has a car accident, everybody in the unincorporated association is liable. So you want to have the corporation to protect the directors and protect the people doing the work and protect the volunteers, right? So that's a very important part of it. The second is you need your IRS approval. And the nice thing about that is in the last year they've invented something called the 1023-EZ, which is a very short form and easy to fill out and easy to submit. And the IRS is committed to trying to get those out on an average of 30 days, right? So there's some pushback on that, so it's important if you're thinking about starting a not-for-profit, get your incorporation, then get your 1023-EZ in. And the third is, who's going to support you? You need 3 directors, but who else in the community? What are you going to say are your purposes? And you have a group that is prepared to support those purposes and buy into them. The other thing I'd suggest is that very often elected officials at the local level can be very helpful in getting people through this process. So your local city council person, your local assembly person can make a big difference, and often they can put you in touch with both resources and with people that can help you go forward. Sometimes they can even get you grants.
And Cindy, you are not a founder.
I'm not.
But you are basically a founder in New York because you are an ED here in New York City. So can you tell us a little bit about Lift?
Sure. So Lift is working to support families, particularly with young kids during the critical first years, to ensure that kids have a good start in life. And so we help families find stability by helping them find jobs, housing, access quality education for themselves and for their kids.
Great. And you're moving.
We moved last week, actually. So we moved our offices from the Fordham neighborhood down to close to the hub.
And Tanisha, you're around there too, right?
Yes, I had the pleasure of attending an ED breakfast, and during that ED breakfast, I met the CEO of Sobro. So my office is located in the Sobro office in the hub as well.
So you're actually very close to each other and neighbors. So, and I think that also speaks to the way nonprofits work together and try to help each other. I think just the idea of being able to find space, and which is a huge issue for a lot of nonprofits, being able to find a place that they can be. So, but Cindy, you weren't the founder. So what brought you to Lift, and have you always worked in nonprofit?
I have always worked in nonprofit since college. And I came to Lift a couple years ago. I had been working with another nonprofit called CFY, which is an education technology organization that also focused on families. And I loved Lift's holistic approach to supporting families. One of the things that was sometimes a challenge with my old organization was that if a family didn't have a place to live, or if they didn't have food to eat, it was sometimes hard for them to focus on things like education for their kids. And so being able to provide holistic support has been really exciting to me.
And do each of you see yourselves in nonprofits, that is the future, even if it's not in this? What's the appeal of that? Of nonprofit versus for-profit?
I mean, I feel like that's hard to answer because I've never worked in for-profit.
Right, but there's a choice that when you make a choice about what.
Yeah, I mean, I love being able to, if I'm going to spend 40 or more hours a week away from my family, I love that it's doing something that I know is doing good in the community.
Yes, well.
That's great. And Tanisha, what do you see for the future of Princess for a Lifetime? What's your vision of where you want it to be?
My vision is to make sure that we touch as many lives as possible within the New York City area, and to go national, hit different areas where not only as we're doing in the hospitals, but basically now we're doing people that are home, the families that are off treatment, giving them care packages, not only for themselves, but for the siblings and the families as well, to make sure that we reach as many people as in need. So a lot of children and a lot of families that are battling illness, and after treatment, some people forget about them. So we want to make sure that those lives are still, being touched as well.
So both of you are really doing very, very intimate work with people. That there are programs that go deep rather than broad. And you are a part of a national organization.
We are.
So how does that impact on your not-for-profit here in New York?
It provides a lot of support. I really love being a part of a national network. So there's 6 other cities that we're in. It gives me a network of other executive directors to have sort of peer support, to call somebody else to talk about a challenge that I'm facing. Our national office supports us also with a lot of things like HR, finance, some of the things that we don't have to run exclusively out of New York, which means that we can focus on the mission of what we're trying to do here.
So that's a huge difference then, Tanisha.
Yes.
How do you handle all that?
We handle it like in a little. We reach out to other non-for-profits that are in the sector of what we're doing. We could reach out to an organization like Pajama Program that are doing things for the community, but they're reading books, but they're still dealing with children. So we reach out to other non-for-profits in our community that are doing what we do, and a lot of them have helped as Hostos.
And do you have staff?
We don't have staff. We have a board that loves Princess for a lifetime, and we have different committees that are volunteers. Like we have a creative committee that paint face painters, different aspects of gearing to what we need when we're doing events. So we have volunteers from, even doctors volunteer for our events. So that's what we're doing. We would love to have staff, but we love volunteers.
Do you have, and you rely on volunteers, don't you?
We do. We have a staff of 10, but 6 of them are full-time AmeriCorps folks. And then the face of our work are our advocates, which are volunteers. And so through the course of the year, we have anywhere from 30 to 50 volunteers actually meeting with our members.
So what do you think the biggest challenge is in running a nonprofit? I don't necessarily mean specifically yours, because I think globally, probably I could ask this to 2,498 other EDs.
My thing is learning that when I do get sponsors and private donors, to hold on to them, because I could call them for an event and they'll sponsor that event, but then I have to remember that my programs are year-long. Just don't grab onto them for that event. Ask them to continuously sponsor and continuously donating, whether it's monetary donations or in-kind, because the kids, the families in our community are constantly needing things. People get sick every day. So our thing is to gear and make sure we hold on and we hug our sponsors. And
I love that. I'm going to start using
Cindy,
that.
You see how you can learn from each other?
All 2,500 EDs,
land.
I think, would say the same thing, that fundraising is one of the biggest challenges.
Yeah.
Like this work costs money, and so it's always a challenge. I think the other major challenge of the nonprofit that we face is talent. Attracting and keeping really high quality talent in our field, I think, is a challenge.
And actually, part of what we are working on at the Center for Bronx Nonprofits is exactly that, is running a certificate program for middle management, people who are in middle management, because we want to keep them here, because so many times people get to a certain point, maybe they want to be EDs, but they start looking in other places, and the need is very great in the Bronx, and we want them to be working here. What do you think, what would you say to people who are thinking about, I get calls all the time from people saying, and this is usually the way it goes, I want to help fill in the blanks. I want to help the girls I see down on the corner. I want to help women and children. I want to help these kids who don't seem to have jobs. And then when we talk about it, they want to start a nonprofit. They're in very beginning stages. What would you tell people like that? Saying come to your senses, you can't do it.
I would say, look for organizations that are doing the kind of work you want to do, and see where there are places to plug in and partner. I think it's hard to start a nonprofit, and it's great to have Tanisha here who can share more about that. I think when you are filling a niche, it's great to start that, but you should figure out where's there people doing the work that you want to be doing, and can you plug in and support that as a first step.
Yes, and also get your program, get the mind frame, and build the team with you, because once you start a non-for-profit, you want your programs to be in the right gear. You could always start your programs, and if they don't work, you could cancel them out, but you must have a vision and the mission before you start your non-for-profit.
And actually that explains the title or the name of this program, Mission Bronx. When we were looking at setting up a program that was going to be dedicated to nonprofits, we said, well, what should we focus on? And we thought every nonprofit has a mission.
Yes.
We have a mission at the Center for Bronx Nonprofits, and the missions are sometimes big and sometimes smaller. Yeah. We're going to have to take a break for about 2 minutes, and then we're going to come back and continue this conversation.
There's a shelter pet who wants to meet you. Meet one today. Visit theshelterpetproject.org. Adopt. Everybody has a dream. Mine was to see the ocean. And with a little help, I made it.
Oh, look, a redhead. Staring contest. You still got it.
I know. Come alive with the forest.
The dad was cute.
You were looking right at us.
Visit discovertheforest.org to find a forest near you.
We're back. Thank you, and thank you both. So something that's come to my attention, and I see that Lyft is involved with it, but I actually, we were talking about this on the break, that this is Tanisha's goal to do something like this. Probably some of you have seen, I think it's even in the Duane Reads, there's a thing for Red Nose Day. We're not even going to try to unpack what that is, but there are red noses around, and nonprofits will get money. So that's all we'll say about that. But when we were talking about it and the fact that Lyft is one of the organizations in it, Tanisha said, that's what I want to do. I want to do something big. So tell us about those big dreams.
I just have big dreams, like when they do the water challenge and different things. I just want to get into where I could get people involved and people knowing about Princess for a lifetime. So our services could be dedicated to people that don't really know about us. We have a service that's broadband to children and families, and we want to touch those lives, and maybe we could get into doing different things to get more people involved. I want to wear a red nose.
Well, then you'll be raising
give
money.
You one.
Yeah. See, you'll be raising money for Cindy. This is what I mean. I do think that is one of the most special things about the nonprofit community is that people really all. You're all in the same boat in some ways. Obviously, not the same as large nonprofits, but when you're running a mid-sized to smaller nonprofit, it's not just about the money, which seems to be the biggest challenge, but I think it's also very much about the enthusiasm level and in many cases, I mean, it's the people you see who come to you, the people coming into hospitals, and how do you stop yourself from being so drained by the need? What do you do to keep yourself going?
For me, it's the priceless moments that the facial expressions, not only for the child, but for the staff, like the doctors and nurses, the child life specialists, and the parents. Because these children are just devoted to getting dressed. Even if they're in a wheelchair, they have their cape, they're getting their presents. So it's the priceless moments of the smiles on their face. Even a child that's on their last days and they're rushing them to us. It's just that we got to grant their last wish or the wish period. So it's the priceless moments of happiness.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, it's the work itself that fuels us, I think. Yeah. I mean, especially for folks that are in the roles like we are, where so much of our time is spent doing administrative things or fundraising or out. It's when we get a chance to actually see the difference that the work makes and be with the people who are coming in and who really are the ones who have the courage to make change in their lives. I feel like that's what drives it.
And I think that there's probably not a lot of opportunity to talk about those feelings when you're doing the work, because you're so involved with the work, and there's just the assumption that everybody around you is so involved with the work. So it's nice to have this, at least for me, to have this forums that we can hear what drives you to and other people in nonprofits. I know that when you had the gala just recently, when one of the families you've helped got up, but there wasn't a dry eye in the place. And when you just talked, I thought, okay, you need to just control yourself, Eileen, because you're on this. It's incredible. So what what opportunities do you have for networking and to talk to people who are doing the kinds of things you're doing and working in nonprofits?
No,
I would
we
think
go
that's
everywhere.
necessary.
We go to ED breakfast at Hostos.
Sponsored by the Center for Bronx Nonprofits. A little break.
Yes, and we go to different organizations. We even volunteer for different organizations just to meet and greet and let them know what we do. We network at meet and greet events. Did I kind of say that already?
And what about you, Cindy? How do you find an opportunity to get together with other people? Because you need that opportunity to get together with people doing with what you're doing and then not doing what you're doing,
right.
doing something else.
I think the center has provided great opportunities, and we've appreciated those.
Unsolicited.
I know I have.
Unsolicited, I just am saying.
Yeah. I've appreciated it even from the perspective of just getting to know other EDs in the Bronx specifically, because so many other events you're interacting with folks from the whole city, which is also wonderful, but there is something unique about getting together with other Bronx EDs. I have a sort of ad hoc breakfast that I do with other ED moms. So like very targeted,
great.
but people who are in a similar situation
ED
of having
mom.
young kids
Yeah.
and all that comes with being a working mom.
Yeah.
And, so I feel like wherever you can find that kind of peer support, again with Lyft, I get to do that with other national organizations, and then. I think networking across the board then for fundraising purposes, for program purposes, for whatever. I mean, we take as many opportunities as we can to meet other folks.
And you go ahead.
Also, social network is
I was did you read my mind? I was just going to ask about that.
Yeah, so everything from Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, logging on to other non-for-profits and just saying hello. So social media is like skyrocketed over the years.
Yeah, people are more and more involved with that. So, what do you want to learn? What's the next challenge in terms of learning of how to do something different in your job or better, or feel like you want to add that?
I want to learn to slow down. I'm learning to be everywhere. I'm learning to get into different hospitals to do things. So I kind of want to learn how to slow down. I can't do everything for everybody, but we sure want to learn how to touch a lot of aspects and make sure things are running smoothly and correctly.
I mean, I think we're embarking on sort of a new programmatic shift for us and really focusing in on supporting two-generation approaches to poverty, so working with parents and kids at the same time. And I'm really invested in sort of learning more about that work and the ways that work is happening with other organizations, and making sure that we are pulling from all of the great research and the work that other organizations are doing to do the best work that we can.
And I think, Tanisha, as you know, when we were doing a small program on grant writing, and one of the things that every single person in the room said that they needed help with was time management.
Yeah.
And part of it was slowing down.
Yeah.
So, and speaking of which, we have to slow down. So this has been great. Thank you both very much. And this is our inaugural show, and every month we'll be back with other people from nonprofit organizations. And thank you, the audience, for joining us. I hope that you tune in again, because there are many wonderful people doing wonderful things. And remember, our mission is to give you information that makes your life better. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.